Hey brother! Today we're doing a different kind of video. Today we want to go over the basics for how to play the new Harry Potter game, Wizards Unite. Ever since this game was announced, I have been super excited to play it. Like, I have played a ton of Pokemon Go. I am still playing it. You guys know that we love Harry Potter, so this seemed like a giant marriage between the two. That seemed like a home run to me, and indeed, I have had a lot of fun playing it over the past week. But with that said, even as someone who has played a lot of mobile games, a lot of Pokemon Go, and knows a ton about Harry Potter, I still found the introduction into this game to be kind of overwhelming. There is a semi-slow rollout of information and the in-game tutorials are good, but the game does still drop a ton of stuff for you to suddenly be keeping track of all at once. And it took me a while to get a good handle on it, and even now I'm not sure I still understand every single thing. Also, let me just preface this by saying that I have not so far looked up any tips or tricks or guides or anything for how to play. This video is all going to be stuff self-discovered inside the game, and we wanted to do that on purpose. As soon as I started playing, I kind of felt like I wanted to make this video, and I didn't want to get like too into the nitty-gritty or anything. I felt like if I was having questions, those were probably the same questions you had, and so I wanted to work through it and make sure I got the most honest, authentic answers and problems you guys might be having too. All right, so now that we got all that out of the way, let's just dive into the game because it is still a lot of fun. As soon as you fire up the game, you're gonna be asked to do all the basic stuff, create a profile, choose a house, take a picture. But after you finish choosing Slytherin and gone through all the introductory tutorials, you will finally be able to just freely roam around on the map. Now, if you've never played an augmented reality game before, like Pokemon Go, all that really means is that it takes place as much in the real world as it does on your phone, meaning that as you move around in real life, your character will move around in the same spot on the map on your phone. As you move around the map, there's a ton of different stuff you can interact with, and we're gonna touch on all of them, but let's start with the meat of the game, which is the Confoundables. The story of the game, if you will, is that the statute of secrecy is in danger of revealing the wizards to the muggles, and you need to go around and stop that from happening by interacting with little floating colored tokens known as Confoundables. With one notable exception, which we'll touch on in a second, anytime you tap on one of these floating colored tokens, you will enter into an encounter with that Confoundable. And what you do is pretty straightforward. The game will give you a spell to trace, you trace it with your finger, and that will cast the spell. Also, worth noting, the game will start you out in AR mode, for augmented reality mode, where you can literally see your surroundings through the camera and like the game will take place there. You can turn this off though, and I highly recommend you do that because one, it'll save battery, and two, it'll keep everything right in place, which makes the game way easier to play. After you've cast your spell though, one of three things can happen. Either you will successfully defeat the Confoundable and you get to add a little fragment to your registry. Two, nothing will happen and you'll have to try and cast the spell again. Or three, the Confoundable will run away and you will have lost your opportunity to collect it. As far as casting the spells, I have not quite figured out what the game is asking for. It might feel like it's being weirdly harsh on your tracing abilities. Seriously, sometimes I feel like I traced it perfectly and it gives me a fair. Other times I miss it wildly and it's like, that was great! Either way, there's a little bar across the top that tells you how you're doing. It'll say fair, good, great, or masterful. And don't feel bad if you're not getting masterful because I have only gotten it once so far. Ben claims he's gotten it 4 times, but whatever. Point is, it is uncommon, and as far as I can tell, both accuracy and the speed at which you trace are important, and I think speed is more important, so maybe focus more on that. Whilst you are in the encounter, however, there are still a few things you need to keep track of. Down in the bottom left corner, you'll see these little blue lightning bolts. This is the amount of spell power you have, which has nothing to do with how powerful your spells are, just the number of spells you can cast. Fortunately, it's pretty easy to refill these just by visiting inns, but we'll talk more about those later. But the other thing you need to keep track of, and one easy way to conserve your spell power and to stop the Confoundables from running away from you, is by using potions, which you can access in the bottom right of the screen. You use these before you cast a spell, and there's a wide variety in the game, but the game starts you out with 3 versions of the same Extimulo potion. And they all do the same thing with varying effectiveness, which is just increase the power of your spell. The regular one lasts for 3 casts and give you a slight boost. The strong one lasts for 4 casts and gives you a little bit bigger boost. And the potent one lasts for 5 spell casts and gives you the biggest boost. As a general rule of thumb though, I don't really use the potions unless the threat level when the encounter starts is like in the red or the yellow. If it's red, I'll go for the potent. If it's yellow, I'll go for the strong. And otherwise, I'll just use the tiny ones if I'm just having trouble catching something. Every time you end up defeating a confoundable though, you'll get a fragment to add to your registry, and filling up your registry is kind of the overall goal of the game, or at least that's what it seems like so far. The registry itself has 10 different categories which you can cycle through by clicking the little icons at the top, and all of these icons match up with the little floating tokens in the game. So for example, if you click on a dark arts token in the map part of the game and you collect that confoundable, it'll show up here in the dark arts section of the registry. And they all pretty much act the exact same except for the purple ones, which are the oddities. Rather than just casting spells at it, this will enter you into a battle. And the battles aren't very hard to do at all, but the first time I entered into one, I had no idea what was going on and like didn't know exactly what to do. But all you do is just move your little cursor around with your finger and line it up over the circle on top of your enemy, wait for the circle to fill, and boom, you'll cast a spell. Unlike other confoundables though, these guys will actually attack you back, but defending is super easy. There'll just be an arrow on the screen, you swipe your finger in that direction and you'll cast Protego, which they'll still do some damage to you, but it's not much unless you miss the spell. And basically you just rinse and repeat that exact pattern until you either win or lose the fight. But if you think you're gonna lose, you can go ahead and use one of the same potions we just talked about to give yourself a little power boost, or you can use a health potion to heal your life back. Either way though, when you win the fight, you will get to add another fragment to your registry, and the goal initially for me at least was waiting until I could finally see what happened when I filled up the page of the registry. And I will admit, it does take a while, but when you get there, you can basically level up that page, or prestige that page, I believe is the correct verbiage from the game, which basically means that page gets a fancy new frame around it, and then if you catch any of the stuff that was on that page, you'll get more experience than you were getting previously. And don't feel bad if you've not figured this out. Ben filled up his first page and then spent 3 days wondering what to do next. There is a tiny symbol at the top right of that page. You just click that and click level up and it'll do it, but it is not obvious where you do it. You may also notice that inside the registry, each category of confoundable has a little progress bar and a chest next to it that can be ranked up. And all that really happens when you rank up any given category is that you get to open the chest, which will give you some profession scrolls and some runes, both of which we'll talk on in a second. But first, we head back to the map, where there are other things besides confoundables that you can also interact with. The first of which are the Portkeys, which look like little box-shaped pyramid things. They appear pretty much at random, and if you played Pokemon Go, this is this game's version of the eggs. You can access the Portkeys from the main menu, and instead of incubators for eggs, you have keys for Portkeys. The game supplies you with one infinite gold key, meaning that you can use that gold key to unlock as many Portkeys as you can. Alternatively, you can also collect silver keys inside of the game, which are single use and can only open up one Portkey. But all you do is start unlocking it, and then you'll have to walk a specific distance in order to get the key to actually unlock it. And my personal advice here is to not use any silver keys on 2-kilometer Portkeys. Save all of your silver keys for the 5K and the 10K and only use the gold key on the 2K. That way you'll get the most value out of your single-use keys. I have to say though, when you do finally unlock one, it is way more fun than hatching an egg in Pokemon Go. It opens this part of the game where you have to set the Portkey down and then a portal will open up, which you physically have to walk through in real life and then turn around and you can start collecting little glowing orbs, which they're calling rack spurts. And these are rare items that you can only get from Portkeys. Sometimes there's confoundables, sometimes there's extra experience or potion brewing items. Which brings me to brewing potions. The other thing you can find on the large map view is potion ingredients, which predictably you can then use to brew potions, which you can access from the main menu. And brewing is pretty simple. You just click which one you want to get started and then hit brew. You can have up to 4 queued at once, and once the first one finishes, the next one will automatically begin. Now there are 2 ways you can speed up the potion brewing process. process. And one of these I did not notice for a while, but if you tap on it once it started brewing, you can do something called master notes. Master notes are gestures you can draw on top of the potion itself, as if you're like doing wand work on the potion. Each potion has a different set of master notes that you need to do to speed it up. Which master notes you have to do is the mystery though. There's a bunch of different gestures you have to do, and if you get one in the sequence wrong, you'll have to start over and just start experimenting again. For example, if you're brewing the basic extimulo, all you have to do is straight line, clockwise circle, and that'll speed up the brewing process by 15%. Other way you can speed up your potion brewing is by spending coins, but please don't do that. Coins are the game's in-game currency, and they are hard to come by unless you are spending real-world money. Now, there's nothing wrong with spending money in the game if that's what you want to do, but if you're going to do that, I would advise you spend it on something you get to keep forever, like extra inventory space. Your inventory, I guarantee you, is going to fill up super fast, and as soon as it does, the game will prompt you immediately to expand it by spending coins. Do not fall for this. The way better way to do it is to go into the little shopping cart, scroll all the way to the bottom, and click on Vault Extensions. You are getting way more bang for your virtual buck if you're doing it in this package deal than if you do it on the one-by-one thing the game is suggesting to you. Anyway, heading back to the map, besides just the stuff you can pick up, there's also 3 different kinds of buildings you can interact with: inns, fortresses, and greenhouses. The most basic of these is the inn, which is akin to the Pokestop in Pokemon Go. The difference being that there are 5 different colors: pink, green, blue, brown, and purple. But don't let that confuse you. There is no difference between any of them other than aesthetics. All you do is tap to open an inn, swipe right, and it'll give you additional spell power. And as far as I can tell, there doesn't seem to be any additional skill to this. It looks like something of a shell game is happening, but really you're just playing the lottery and it gives you a random 3 to 7 amount of spell power. Also, pro tip, you can tell whether or not you've already visited an inn because smoke will be coming out of the top of it, but that will reset after 5 minutes and then you can visit that inn again. But that is not all you can do at the inn. If you swipe to the right, you will go to the dark detector machine where you can add your own dark detector, which will summon extra confoundables out in the real world that anyone else also playing the game will be able to see. This is a lot like a lure from Pokemon Go, with the exception that you can stack up to 3 dark detectors on a single inn at a time. So if you and a couple buddies are sitting down to lunch and there's an inn near you, that is a good time to load up and just make tons of confoundables pop up around you. Also, you can tell just on the map if there is a dark detector active at an inn because there'll be little spinning light around it. The more dark detectors active, the more spinning lights. Another place you can visit on the map is the greenhouse, and this one definitely threw me for the biggest loop so far because I didn't exactly know how it worked. Like the inn, it has 2 tabs at the bottom where you can collect different things from. Except unlike the inn, you get a choice of 1 of 3 plants. I've just always been choosing the center one. Don't know why, just always do. And instead of just spell power, sometimes it'll also give you potion ingredients. But the confusing thing about the greenhouses is on the 2nd tab where there's a potted plant with something growing in it. Well, sometimes it's just an empty pot and you're the one who gets to start growing something in there. But after there is something growing, you can contribute spell power to its completion. And the first few times I came to a greenhouse, I was like, yeah, okay, I'll contribute to this. What do I get from that? And the answer is maybe nothing. The more the community contributes to that greenhouse, the more ultimate ingredients it will yield when it's done growing. And the plant will tell you how much longer it has to grow. But the catch is you have to be near the greenhouse when it completes its growth. At that time, said item will just appear on the ground around the greenhouse, but it'll only be there for 30 minutes. So you really need to make sure you're going to be there if you contributed a lot of spell power. And this can be tricky because I planted something today that takes literally 24 hours to grow, and it's like, I don't know if I'm going to be here tomorrow. So if you are doing this or spending a lot of spell power, just maybe set a timer or an alarm or make sure it's part of a very routine thing, or that maybe you just like are going to be seated next to that greenhouse for a long time, because otherwise you're just going to have to get a little bit lucky. And finally, though, that leaves us with the fortresses, which are the really giant buildings where you can go to put your battle skills to the test. As you unlock new ranks by collecting more confoundables, you will open chests that will give you runes, and you're gonna first be like, what do I do with the runes? I personally had no idea. Even if you click on it, it says you can use these at wizard challenges, and you're like, what are wizard challenges? Wizard challenges take place at fortresses, and you need to use the runes to enter into a challenge. They're kind of like a raid pass if you're more familiar with Pokemon Go. When you go to a fortress though, it'll prompt you with which level of difficulty you want to fight at. The higher the level though, the more people you're probably going to need with you to successfully complete the challenge. When you choose what level to do though, it's going to give you your whole selection of runes and you're going to be like, well, which one should I do? Does it matter which one I choose? And the answer is yes, it does. Whichever kind of rune you do will give you different kinds of rewards. For example, in a challenge I did a couple days ago, I used a Dark Arts rune and I was awarded with Tom Riddle Sr.'s Grave, which is a Dark Arts confoundable. That said, I'm still not personally sure if it matters if you use like a high level rune on a low level challenge, or if it will yield you the same results, or if you're better off saving big runes for big challenges. I'm gonna have to do more testing for that. For me though, the fortresses have been so far the funnest part of the game because you have to work together with your friends to take them down. Once you're inside, it's the exact same as fighting the oddities we talked about earlier, the very exact battle system. You just drag your little spell, do the little Protego spells, you'll get through it no problem. But the difference is that once you finish your battle, you'll be sent into this little waiting room where you can start a new battle, or you can help your friends with their battles by providing spells from whatever profession you are. Which brings us to professions. When you get to level 6 in the game, you'll be asked to choose a wizarding profession. You can be a professor, a magizoologist, or an auror. And the three basically function like rock, paper, scissors in battles, except that you're not actually fighting each other, you're fighting the confoundables. But aurors do extra damage against dark forces like dark wizards or death eaters, but take extra damage from magical beasts. Magizoologists do extra damage to beasts, but take extra damage from curiosities. And professors do extra damage to curiosities, but take extra damage from dark forces. I personally chose auror, but honestly, thus far, I can't tell if any one is specifically better than the other. I think in the end, they'll all definitely just even out in some way. And if you're unhappy with your choice, you can actually switch between professions at no cost, which was kind of a weird bonus in my mind. Like, I would totally have expected this to be a thing you chose and then you were just stuck with forever. That said, whatever you choose, I think you should just pretty much stick with. Because inside of each profession, there is a skill tree where you can add skills to your wizard. And of course, it'll cost you the profession scrolls I mentioned earlier to level up these skills. So if you're switching around a bunch, you're not going to get the most value out of those items. So like, for example, if you make a bunch of upgrades to your aura tree, but then decide, I think I'd rather be a professor, then all of a sudden you've wasted a bunch of resources on aura that you now don't have access to because you're in the professor tree. And there you go. For the most part, I think that covers all of the general basics for Wizards Unite. Although, honestly, I feel like we could make entire full videos about every single section of this game. There's just a lot going on in there. I will give you one final bit of advice, though. If you are first firing up the game, my advice is to go to like a heavily populated area, like in the downtown location of your town or city or wherever, where there's a lot of stuff happening. Go to the potions and activate Barufio's Brain Elixir. Do this before you start catching literally anything in the game. The Brain Elixir will double your experience, and the first time you catch any given confoundable, you get a bonus for it being the first time you caught it, and it's a pretty significant bonus, and having the Brain Elixir going while you do that is going to give you a very fast head start because pretty much everything you catch is going to be new. But again, it only lasts for 30 minutes. That's why you want to be in a heavily populated area where there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. So activate it and then act fast. And there you go. That is our introduction into Wizards Unite. I have personally had a lot of fun with it. I would love to know what you guys think of it in the towel section down below. What profession did you choose? Have you switched around at all? Have you had trouble collecting anything? Or are there any questions you have from us that you'd like us to look into a little bit further? I would kind of like to make more Wizards Unite videos. We haven't done any mobile gaming on here, but I do it all the time. Like Pokemon Go has like consumed a ton of my life. Guys, thanks so much for watching today's video. Please remember to like the video if you haven't already and subscribe so you don't miss any future Harry Potter action from us. If you want more Wizards Unite videos, you can head over to Super Carlin Gaming. You can subscribe by clicking the little round icon right here. Or if you want just more Harry Potter videos from us, you can check out our Harry Potter playlist right here. But Ben, that's all I've got for you today, man. I will see you in another life, brother.